My parents refused to pay for my dream college because they said it wouldn't be fair to my sister. They cut me off, supported her completely, and told everyone I abandoned them. When the truth eventually came out, I stayed quiet. My achievements explained everything on their own. Hey Reddit! Growing up, my family treated my sister like a star and treated me like background furniture that occasionally paid bills. So I eventually thought, all right, enjoy it, packed my things, and built a life without them. Turns out they weren't finished causing problems. Let's get into it. My name's Leon. I'm 26 now and working as a design engineer at a company that actually values people who can solve problems without unnecessary drama. I wasn't always confident. I developed that slowly. If you want to understand why I have zero patience for disrespect, you need to know the people who raised me. My parents are Hank and Abigail, two people who acted like they were running a royal dynasty instead of a normal home. And their chosen heir was my older sister, Ada. According to them, she was one miracle away from walking on water. If she blinked, they praised her. If I built something impressive, they treated it like I was rearranging furniture. She was older, but after taking a medical leave, which my parents refused to call what it was, being held back, Ada and I ended up in the same grade. That meant we applied to colleges at the same time. I wasn't mistreated in some dramatic movie-style way. It was quieter. Ada got the spotlight. I got the space behind it. She loved every second. Attention was her fuel. She couldn't function unless someone was applauding something she didn't actually do. Meanwhile, my whole high school life was work mode. I spent nights in the garage soldering boards, experimenting with circuits, building random prototypes because it helped me breathe. After school, I worked part-time, saved whatever I could, and then came home to keep building until sunrise. I didn't need praise. I needed an escape into a real future. My dream school was an elite engineering program I'd been obsessed with since freshman year. A place where people actually built things instead of just talking about them. I had brochures taped in my locker, like some kids have band posters. Ada's dream school was whatever campus looked best on Hank's LinkedIn. He bragged about her being accepted months before she even applied. Abigail was the same, acting like admissions officers were personally inviting Ada to grace them with her presence. Ada loved it. She talked about which dorm she'd choose even though she hadn't been accepted anywhere. By spring, envelopes started arriving for both of us. This is where my parents' bias went from annoying to concerning. When I got my first acceptance, they didn't congratulate me. They didn't even look up. They just said, "Don't get ahead of yourself. We need to focus on Ada." I didn't argue. You can't reason with people who have already rewritten reality to their liking. Then the big envelope came, from my dream school, with a partial scholarship. My hands were literally shaking when I opened it, and I'm not the type who shakes. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my work meant something. I walked into the living room with the letter. Hank was watching TV. Abigail was on her phone. Ada was practicing her future college girl attitude, like she was preparing for a role. I told them plainly that I got in and received a partial scholarship. Nothing. Hank blinked like I interrupted his show. Abigail said, "That's nice, but let's wait for more important news." Ada rolled her eyes like my achievement was inconvenient. A few days later, Ada's letters arrived. First rejection. Second rejection. Third rejection. Watching her expression drop was like watching something fall in slow motion. She kept insisting there had to be a mistake. Hank and Abigail refused to accept it. They blamed the system, the admissions process, quotas, everything except the obvious. Ada went into full meltdown, crying, blaming teachers, blaming the universe. Anything except her own academic record. The house felt tense enough to touch. I stayed quiet because I knew that pressure was heading toward me. I was right. The next morning, Hank walked into the kitchen with a dramatic sigh, like he was delivering tragic news. He said, "We need a family talk," using the tone he saved for bad ideas. We sat down. Hank took the head of the table like he owned the air. Abigail wore her "this hurts me more than you" face. Ada looked like she'd been practicing her sad expression all morning. Hank cleared his throat. "Leon, your acceptance is complicated." I raised an eyebrow. It was college, not a crime. He continued, "You going to that school now would make Ada feel small. It would be unkind to get ahead of her when she's struggling." Ada held her chest like I had personally wronged her. "It's just a lot, Leon. You know how much I wanted my school." I asked, "And what does that have to do with mine?" She looked offended, which told me everything. Hank used his wise father voice. "A real man sacrifices for his family. You should stay home, go to community college, and help Ada gain stability. Then we can revisit your plans." Abigail added quickly, "It's not forever, just 2 years. Stay close. Don't make your sister feel worse." I let them finish. Then I answered clearly, once, because I don't repeat myself. "I worked for this. I earned it. The scholarship won't wait. I'm not giving up my future because Ada didn't get into her school." Abigail stiffened. "Leon, don't be selfish, she's fragile." Ada sniffed. "You're choosing yourself over family. You always think you're better." I gave a short laugh. "I don't think I'm better. I think I'm done living in your shadow." Hank went red. "If you walk away to chase some ego trip—" "It's not an ego trip," I said. "It's my life." That set him off. He slammed his hand on the table. "Then you're on your own. No support, no help. Don't come back asking for anything." I leaned back. "That's fine." They expected begging. Instead, when I stayed calm, they looked surprised, almost confused. Abigail crossed her arms. "If you leave, you're not part of this family." I shrugged. "You made that decision when you tried to tie my future to Ada's feelings." Ada scoffed. "See, you always act above us." I replied, steady. "Ada, I didn't take anything from you. You just didn't earn what you assumed you deserved." Everything froze for a moment. Hank stood like he might drag me out. Abigail grabbed Ada as if I'd been threatening instead of honest. Ada glared with the same mix of envy and insecurity I'd seen for years. That ended the meeting. They officially cut me off. No funding, no support, nothing. Graduation week showed the difference clearly. For Ada's events, they went all out with balloons, gifts, and family photos. At my ceremony, they arrived late, stood in the back, didn't clap, didn't speak to me, and left early. It felt normal, which said a lot. I packed my things, mostly tools, clothes, and a worn-out laptop, and headed to campus. No goodbye. No big moment, just me walking out the door. My first night in the dorm, I sat on the mattress and realized there was no safety net, no backup, no one to call if I messed up. And honestly, that felt right. My dream school wasted no time showing me I wasn't in my hometown anymore. On the first day, I heard students debate which private school had the best Ivy League acceptance rate. Meanwhile, I had a squeaky second-hand backpack and a slow laptop. But I wasn't there to compete with money. I was there to work. Their advantage was money. Mine was stubbornness. To survive, I worked multiple jobs. Morning shifts at the dorm desk, tutoring freshmen who couldn't open MATLAB, and taking lab assistant hours whenever faculty needed extra help. My schedule looked exhausting, but it paid rent and kept me going. Classes were tough, but I got good grades. A professor noticed me after I fixed a broken circuit quickly and invited me to join his research lab. That led to an internship. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me momentum. For a while, life felt stable. Tiring, but stable. Then Ada reminded everyone she existed. One night around 2 a.m., I took a study break and checked my phone. First mistake. The top post on my feed was a long message from Ada, filled with dramatic formatting and crying emojis. She started with, "I just want to be honest on here." Her rant said I abandoned the family, thought I was better than them, and walked away when they needed me. People commented non-stop. Old classmates, random mutuals, people who liked the loudest voice in the room. Some asked if I really ran away. I stared at it and muttered, "Didn't know I apparently disappeared and became a villain off-screen." Humor kept me grounded, but it stayed in my mind longer than I wanted. It wasn't her post, it was how quickly people believed it. She created her own version of events, and I wasn't there to correct any of it. I went back to studying because Rent wasn't interested in how I looked online. Then, my laptop finally gave out. It had been struggling for months, and that night it clicked, froze and shut down like it was officially done. This happened during finals week. Projects due, lab reports half-written, code unfinished. And I had no money for repairs. I didn't panic. I just stared at the screen, took a breath, and said, "All right, guess I'm doing this the hard way." I practically moved into the library for the entire week. I slept there between study sessions, used loaner computers older than my childhood, and tried to rebuild everything I'd lost. I dug through old backups, asked a TA for an extension, and worked on recovering my files like it was delicate work. It was survival. But I didn't fall apart. I didn't have space to fall apart. By the end of that week, I was running solely on caffeine, library air, and determination. My eyes looked like I hadn't slept in years, but the work was done, barely. I walked out of my last exam feeling like a ghost who had managed decent grades. I made it back to my dorm thinking I could finally rest. Instead, my phone buzzed. Ada. Her text read, "I'm nearby, come outside." I stared at it, a dramatic approach for someone who supposedly disliked me. I assumed it was a joke from her friends. But when I stepped outside, she was there, arms folded, designer jacket on, looking upset, with a rideshare waiting behind her. She started with the soft tone. "Mom's been crying. Dad's furious. Are you really going to keep this up?" I leaned against the wall. "You all cut me off. Don't act surprised that I stayed gone." Her expression changed instantly. "You always needed to be better, Leon. You couldn't let me have my thing." I repeated her words. "Your thing? Ada, I didn't take anything from you. You didn't get in. That's not on me." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You liked seeing me fail. You enjoyed this." I responded calmly. "I wanted you to succeed, but I'm not limiting my life so you can feel comfortable." She turned away in a dramatic manner. "If you were a real brother, you'd come home or transfer. I'm struggling." I shrugged. I'll help you study if you genuinely want help, but I won't be your emotional support system." She gave a bitter laugh. "You're selfish. You act like you're above us." I straightened. "No, I'm just not controlled by you." I ended it clearly. "You don't miss me. You miss control." Ada's face went red. She turned around, got into the car, slammed the door and left. I watched the car disappear and thought, she's panicking. Something else is going on. After the night she confronted me, I assumed she would calm down and give me space. She didn't. A few days later, she texted me like the argument never happened. "Hey, Leo, how are classes?" The emoji alone was unusual. Ada didn't miss people. She missed usefulness. I replied with one word: busy. She responded immediately. "I'm glad you're doing okay. I've been thinking about you." Then she reached the real reason. "Can you send me that lab write-up you mentioned? I'm taking something similar and I'm really struggling." There it was, not even disguised. I typed, "No, do your own work." 5 seconds later, her tone changed completely. Wow, selfish. Same old Leon who thinks he's too good to help. My dry humor kicked in. "You asked for cheat sheets, not a kidney." She left the message unread. The conversation was never about reconnecting. She wanted help without doing the work. 2 days later, my cousin Jillian messaged me. "I think Ada's cheating," she wrote. "She barely attends class but gets A's on everything." I wasn't surprised. Ada always avoided effort. But Jillian had proof. She sent screenshots from Ada's roommate, who recognized a purchased essay Ada had reused. She forwarded receipts, group chat messages, and emails showing Ada paying for quizzes and assignments. It wasn't subtle cheating. It was careless, predictable, and expensive. "What should I do?" Jillian asked. ... I told her the truth. "Do what's right. I'm not getting involved." Jillian reported it to the Academic Integrity Office, and the investigation began immediately. Meanwhile, Hank and Abigail were keeping up appearances. Someone back home told me that when people asked how I was doing, Hank smiled proudly and said, "Leon's at a top engineering program. We always knew he'd succeed." Interesting, considering the last thing he told me was not to come back. Abigail added her own version. "Our son is doing amazing." This came from the same parents who pushed me out and supported Ada fully. But bragging mattered more to them than accuracy. The investigation into Ada's cheating lasted a month, though rumors started spreading early. Someone in the office shared things informally, and soon her campus was full of talk. Ada panicked and predictably blamed me. On social media, she posted, "Funny how my brother leaves and still manages to ruin my life." She accused me of sabotaging her education from miles away. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me like I'd done something major. "Why would you hurt your sister? You're holding grudges. Support her instead of tearing her down." I responded to none of them. Explaining myself to people who relied on Ada's version was pointless. 2 weeks later, the official results came out. Ada was expelled for repeated academic dishonesty. The evidence was substantial: paid essays, purchased test answers, messages confirming she wasn't doing her own work. Hank and Abigail reacted as expected. They were upset, hired lawyers, claimed the school was unfair, and insisted Ada was under stress. None of it worked. She was removed from the program. Then another detail surfaced, something I suspected but still hit hard. Hank and Abigail hadn't just known about the cheating. They'd been paying for it. They funded the essays, answer keys, and ghostwriters. They tried to buy Ada a degree the way they tried to buy her success. When it fell apart, they behaved like they were the victims. Ada returned home, announcing she was starting fresh at community college. Hank and Abigail framed it online as her choosing a grounded path. "Our Ada is so strong," Abigail wrote. "She's rebuilding," Hank told neighbors. There was no mention of expulsion or cheating. Certainly nothing about who funded it. Their problems were growing, but I wasn't part of them anymore. I didn't owe them explanations, support, or silence. Meanwhile, I prepared for my own graduation. Capstone deadlines, presentations, and interviews stacked up. For the first time in years, my future felt solid. I was exhausted, but everything was finally aligning. While their situation declined, I was moving forward. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like confirmation that leaving had been the correct decision. My next challenge wasn't their situation. It was the career I had worked for. Graduation arrived quickly. One moment I was using old library computers, and the next I was standing in a cap and gown with an honors cord. It felt real and deserved. Every late night, every shift, every dismissal from home led to that moment. Hank and Abigail didn't attend, which wasn't surprising. No congratulations, no message. They showed more energy attending Ada's elementary school events than acknowledging my degree. I took the diploma, accepted the applause, and walked out without searching for people who were never going to be there. A week later, I received the email I had worked toward since freshman year, a job offer from a top engineering firm. The kind Hank used to name drop when talking about successful people. The irony wasn't lost on me. The offer included a strong salary, relocation support, and full benefits. I accepted and completed the onboarding papers, thinking the process would finally be straightforward. It wasn't. 2 days before my start date, HR sent the standard background check request, asking for address history and an emergency contact. I listed no family contact and put down a friend. The screening team followed up, asking for brief confirmation of long-term independence. I kept it simple. My parents disowned me when I left for college. We are not in contact. I gave them my housing supervisor as verification. 48 hours later, the background check cleared. "See you Monday." I didn't celebrate. I just took a long breath and kept moving. I relocated to a new city, found a small apartment, bought inexpensive furniture, and settled into a neighborhood that smelled like old coffee and ambition. I started my job with the same mindset I had in college. Work hard, stay consistent, and don't complain. It paid off. Within my first year, I went from entry level to leading a small team. By the second year, I was managing a project on my own. When you grow up with parents who treat you like background noise, hearing coworkers appreciate your contributions feels unfamiliar. Life stayed steady until one random weekend at the grocery store. I ran into someone from my hometown, Matt, a guy I used to sit next to in physics. We weren't close, but we had no issues either. He recognized me in the checkout line. "Leon? No way." He looked at me like he'd spotted a rare sight. "Heard you moved here. So you really left your family behind, huh?" I paused. "That's what you heard?" He shrugged. "Ada said you abandoned them, said you didn't want anything to do with them." I let out a short laugh. "Interesting. They disowned me, not the other way around." He froze. "Seriously?" "Seriously. They told me not to come back when I chose my college. Ada didn't want anyone outshining her. They covered he. She was expelled. Somehow I became the villain." Matt looked uncomfortable, like he realized he'd been following the wrong version of the story. "Man, that's not what anyone back home says." "Yeah, I replied, because they only hear Ada's script. He didn't say much after that, just nodded, muttered a weak, "Sorry, dude," and pushed his cart away. I wasn't angry. It just confirmed how far their version of events had spread. Months turned into years. I kept working, got promoted again, improved my apartment. My life no longer felt like something I needed to defend. Jillian kept me updated about Ada, usually starting with, "You won't believe this." According to her, Ada kept switching community college classes, dropping many of them, and blaming professors for not recognizing her potential. Hank and Abigail supported everything she did, treating her like expectations didn't apply to her. It didn't surprise me. They built her a world without consequences. And he stayed. I didn't hear from my parents at all. Not on birthdays, not during holidays, not after promotions. Silence became normal. Then one day, Jillian sent a message. "Ada's finally finishing her associate degree. They're throwing a huge party. Everyone's acting like she overcame something major." I laughed quietly. Of course they were. A celebration for fixing a situation they created. "Classic," Jillian added. "They're calling it a family milestone. Your name's coming up." That made me pause. My family loved rewriting history. They'd done it since I left. But I wasn't 18 anymore, and I wasn't letting them control the story. I wasn't going back, but I also wasn't staying silent. The truth had been hidden long enough. The party was on a Saturday. I planned to rest after a long work week, but my phone kept buzzing like it was owed money. Jillian was the first to get through. "Leon, they're dragging you again," she said. "It's bad. They're rewiring everything." She called instead of replying. "You're the villain," she said. "They're telling everyone you abandoned the family, refused to support Ada when she struggled at a toxic school, and that you cut ties because you think you're too good." I sighed, not surprising. But she continued. "They're saying Ada chose community college for self-growth, and that you're jealous she stayed close to family." I let out a small laugh. Jealous of Ada's fast track to probation? Sure. "I'm serious," Jillian insisted. "People believe them, even relatives who know better. Hank and Abigail are acting like their version is fact." I didn't get upset. I just said, "Time to correct the story." She exhaled. "You're really going to do it?" "Oh yeah, if they want an audience, I'll give them accuracy." I opened the old family group chat, silent toward me for years, and typed a message. Clear, simple facts. "Since you're revising my life again, here's the actual version so there's no confusion later. My parents disowned me because I wouldn't give up my chosen college for Ada. Ada didn't choose community college. She was expelled for cheating. She paid for papers and online exams. Hank and Abigail helped fund it. There is an official finding from her university's Academic Integrity Office. Documentation exists. That's why she came home. Not self-growth. Not a reset. Expulsion." I paused, then added, "As for me, since you keep pretending I disappeared, I've been promoted again. I'm now leading a major engineering division at the company Hank used to mention as only hiring the best." Then I hit send. Silence. No typing bubbles, no replies. Jillian texted instantly. "Oh my God, Leon." The room just stopped. She said someone had the group chat open and read my message aloud, calmly, without drama, like dropping a simple fact in the middle of a gathering. She sent rapid updates. Everyone froze. Hank looked shocked. Abigail's pale. Ada's crying and yelling. People are whispering. Your uncle asked, "Is this true?" No one answered. Then chaos. People arguing. People leaving. Another update. Hank is calling it a misunderstanding. No one believes him. Abigail's blaming stress. Ada says you ruined her life by telling the truth. Someone asked why they lied. They walked away. I didn't feel victory or anger, just finality. I was done with the version of the family they kept promoting. 10 minutes later, the group chat lit up. Abigail, how could you do this tonight of all nights? Hank, you had no right to embarrass your sister. Ada, I hope you're happy. You always wanted to destroy me. You're sick, Leon, sick. I muted the chat. Their anger wasn't new. It was just louder because others finally heard the truth. Jillian texted again. People are leaving. Some relatives told me they had concerns for. Leon, you just broke the family myth. I replied, it wasn't a myth, just a long-running denial. She sent a laughing emoji, then a serious one. You did the right thing. They've lied for too long. I went back to cleaning my apartment. The truth doesn't need applause. An hour later, the messages changed tone. Leon, please respond. Let's talk. You misunderstood everything. We can explain. I ignored them. Their concern wasn't regret. It was about the audience finally seeing the real picture. By morning, the tone softened even more. We're family. We can fix this. Life is too short for anger. We miss you. It wasn't affection. It was fear. Fear that their version no longer dominated. I knew the pattern. Denial, anger, guilt, then forced reconciliation. And right on schedule, another message came. We just want our son back. They didn't realize how late that was. The next morning, I got a text from an aunt I barely spoke to. I saw emails about Ada back then, she wrote. She forwarded screenshots from a family thread Hank created during Ada's appeal. He had included a few relatives for support. The messages showed payment receipts for essays, instructions to cover Ada's tracks, and even, as long as Leon never finds out. It didn't shock me, but it clarified everything. They hadn't just supported Ada, they actively hid it. My aunt added, I didn't realize how severe it was. I thought they told you. I'm sorry. It didn't fix anything, but it validated every decision I'd made. Not long after, the guilt messages started again. Abigail wrote long, emotional paragraphs. Family is all you have. You're breaking my heart. You don't understand how hard parenting is. I love you. Please don't ruin us over one mistake. Calling it one mistake almost made me laugh. Then Hank sent short, sharp lines. After everything we did for you, you owe us respect. We gave you a home. You betrayed us. You don't understand sacrifice. I felt nothing but mild irritation. It was predictable. Anger didn't work, so they switched to guilt. I didn't reply, so they tried rewriting history. Abigail wrote, we never disowned you. You misunderstood. Hank added, we only asked you to stay close to help your sister. That wasn't cutting you off. I actually laughed. They could watch a tornado destroy a house and still call it a breeze. More messages followed. We didn't choose Ada over you. We tried our best. You're remembering it wrong. You exaggerate everything. They wanted a version where they weren't responsible, where Ada's actions were just misfortune, and I was unstable for leaving. Then came the push. Let's talk. Come visit. Let's heal as a family. Your sister wants peace. It wasn't about me. It was about image. They wanted the appearance of unity, not the effort required for it. They wanted me back, so no one at gatherings would ask, where's Leon? They wanted Ada not to feel alone in her mistakes. They didn't want me. They wanted the silent version of me. So I finally replied, I'll talk when you're ready to admit what actually happened. No lies, no guilt, no rewriting. Until then, keep your distance. It was a boundary. Abigail responded immediately, "We didn't do anything, Leon. You're twisting everything." Hank added, "You're being cruel. This isn't how a son should act." They reacted exactly how I expected. Upset that I wouldn't bend, upset that guilt didn't work, upset that I finally had control they couldn't recast as wrongdoing. They kept trying. "We're proud of your success. Are you really cutting us off forever? You're hurting us. I'm sorry. Come home. I need my brother." I didn't respond. I wasn't going to be pulled back into a cycle that only existed to protect their image. A week passed. The messages slowed. The tone shifted to resignation. They realized I wasn't returning, not under their terms. I kept working, kept building my life. My career continued to rise. My apartment improved. My circle stayed small but trustworthy. Occasionally, I thought about the idea of parents. Not mine, just the concept. It would have been nice to have people who supported me, who asked about my day, who didn't treat care like a negotiation. But sometimes you grow up with people who wanted a compliant child, not a son. I wasn't angry or sad anymore, just steady. One evening, while reviewing project files, I realized something simple and freeing. I built everything I have without them. My stability, my future, the respect I earned, it's mine. And I'll never minimize myself again to fit into someone else's denial. When people, Abigail, lose control, they call it betrayal. When you stop letting them rewrite your life, they call it cruelty. When you walk away, they call it abandonment. But sometimes walking away is the most honest choice. They wanted their son back, but they lost him the day they tried to limit his future for Ada's ego. It's been a few years since everything fell apart, but honestly, it didn't fall apart. It finally aligned. My life is peaceful now. No forced apologies. No staged family dinners. No pretending blood equals loyalty. Ada still lives at home, still looking for shortcuts. Hank and Abigail post old photos like everything's fine. I don't respond. I don't hate them. I just don't owe them anything. My life is calm, focused, and mine. And that's enough. That's the real end of the story. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It helps the channel grow and lets us bring more stories like this one.